I had always heard about it. People whispering, warning, telling stories, but I never truly understood until that moment. Until I saw it with my own eyes, felt it in my chest, and realized that some things are only real when they touch you directly. I remember the day clearly. The sun had barely risen, casting pale light over the city, and I was running late as usual, juggling my thoughts, my work, and the remnants of a life that had slowly begun to unravel without me noticing. I had no idea that what I was about to witness would mark the beginning of a transformation I never asked for but desperately needed. Before I go further, I want you to stay with me till the end. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because what I'm about to share isn't just a story. It's a journey of heartbreak, revelation, and the quiet, undeniable power of self-discovery. It started with a chance encounter, or so it seemed. I was walking down a street I knew well, yet something in the air that morning felt different. Charged, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I noticed a gathering, not large, just a few people clustered near a storefront, murmuring and pointing. Curiosity pulled me closer, the kind that usually lands me in situations that stay with me for years. And then I saw it. I froze. Not because it was something I feared, but because it was something I had only heard about in hushed tones, in warnings and anecdotes that seemed exaggerated at the time. But there it was, vivid, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. My chest tightened, my breath caught, and I felt the strange mix of fascination and dread. It was real, the real thing, and for the first time, I understood every story I'd ever been told. People were talking around me, but their voices faded. I was caught in the gravity of the moment, observing, feeling, processing. What struck me wasn't just the event itself, but the ripple it created in the air, in the people around it, and more importantly, in me. I realized then that life doesn't gently nudge you into understanding. It smacks you awake. I wanted to look away, to pretend I hadn't seen, to retreat into the comfort of ignorance, but something inside me wouldn't let me. There was a lesson here, a truth screaming to be acknowledged, and as I stood there, silent, absorbing the scene, I felt the first pangs of heartbreak, not just for what I was seeing, but for every moment in my life I had ignored, every time I had refused to confront reality. It's strange how quiet suffering can become habitual. For years I had been carrying things silently. Betrayals, disappointments, the slow erosion of trust in people I thought I could rely on. I'd built walls around my heart, convinced that if I kept them high enough, no pain could reach me. But that morning, all of those walls shook. The reality in front of me pierced through them effortlessly. I realized that I had been living in the stories of others, in their warnings, their half-truths. I had listened, but never internalized, never allowed myself to feel the full impact until it happened to me, or at least until I saw it with my own eyes. And the sight left a mark, not just on my memory, but deep in my bones, a silent echo that would follow me long after the day ended. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake it. I replayed the moment over and over in my mind, dissecting it, analyzing every detail, every expression, every whisper that had brushed past me. It wasn't just fascination. It was awakening. I began to see the patterns in my own life, the subtle betrayals I had tolerated, the unspoken injustices I had allowed to fester. And slowly, a realization took root. I had been giving away my power without even noticing. I started small. I stopped agreeing to things I didn't want to do. I began saying no, gently at first, then more firmly. And each time the quiet rebellion inside me grew. That moment, the real thing I had witnessed, had shown me the stark difference between pretending to understand something and truly living it, fully awake and aware. I realized that heartbreak, pain, and betrayal are not just events. They are teachers, and sometimes the lesson is delivered in the rawest, most undeniable form, the kind that leaves no room for denial. That morning, I had seen one of those lessons unfold before me, and I knew, deep in my heart, that nothing in my life would ever be the same again. That night, alone in my apartment, I allowed myself to feel everything. The grief of what I had ignored, the weight of years of passive compliance, the fear that I had wasted time on trivialities. And then, slowly, the first spark of something new flickered inside me. A determination, a resolve, a seed of empowerment. I would not go back. I would not let life continue on autopilot. I had seen the real thing, felt its impact, and understood the truth. Ignoring reality doesn't protect you from it. It only delays the inevitable confrontation with yourself. And in that quiet, reflective moment, I made a promise to myself. I would see life fully. I would confront it, embrace it, and learn from it. And most importantly, I would no longer give my power away to circumstances, to people, or to fear. Because now, for the first time, I had seen the real thing. The days after that morning felt strangely heavy, yet strangely alive. The memory of what I had seen kept tugging at me, a persistent whisper I couldn't ignore. I found myself replaying the scene in my mind, not in a detached, curious way, but as if it were a mirror reflecting my own life back at me. Every ignored warning, every subtle betrayal, every moment I had given my energy to people and situations that didn't deserve it, it all came rushing forward. I started noticing patterns I had been blind to. I realized how often I had silenced my voice, smiled through discomfort, and told myself that enduring was the same as living. I had convinced myself that patience and compliance were virtues, when in truth they had been chains. I thought I was cautious, wise, and strong, but the truth was I had been protecting everyone else's expectations while my own life quietly slipped away. One evening, I took a long walk through the city streets, retracing my steps from that fateful morning. The air was cool, tinged with the scent of wet asphalt and blooming flowers. It should have been ordinary, but it wasn't. The city seemed alive in a way I had never noticed before. Every passerby moving with purpose, every car and bicycle threading their way through life, and I realized I had been moving blindly for far too long. I began small, almost imperceptibly. I declined invitations that drained me. I stopped pretending to enjoy people's company when I didn't. I refused favors that came with expectations. At first it was uncomfortable, as though the universe itself was testing me, nudging me to see if I would relent. But each small act of resistance felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I had long thought lost. Work became a sanctuary. I threw myself into projects that mattered, ones that allowed me to create, to shape, and to leave a mark of my own. I began to notice how satisfying it was to make choices for myself, without the shadow of obligation looming over me. There was power in it, not loud or dramatic, but subtle, undeniable, and quietly intoxicating. Then came the subtle confrontations. Friends, family, even strangers, all seemed to notice a shift in me. Some tried to challenge it. "Are you sure you want to do that?" they would ask. Or, "Maybe you're overreacting." And I realized that standing firm often draws resistance, not because it's wrong, but because it disrupts the comfort of others' expectations. I stayed silent at first, letting their words pass like ripples over stone. And in that silence, I felt a calm strength building. It wasn't all victories. I faced moments of doubt and regret. I wondered if I had been too harsh, too rigid, too unwilling to forgive. I mourned the years I had spent ignoring myself, silently enduring the small betrayals and frustrations that had added up like tiny drops in a bucket until it overflowed. But even in that mourning, there was clarity. I began to understand that the pain wasn't punishment. It was guidance. It was the universe's way of nudging me toward self-realization. One evening, I sat by my window, the city lights flickering like distant stars. I reflected on the person I had been versus the person I was becoming. The old me would have recoiled from confrontation, avoided discomfort, and hidden behind polite smiles. The new me was beginning to embrace the difficult truths, to meet them head on, and to allow herself to feel fully the heartbreak, the disappointment, the fear, but also the hope, the determination, and the quiet satisfaction of living authentically. I realized that the thing I had seen that morning was not just a spectacle. It was a lesson in clarity. Life would always have moments of betrayal, of disappointment, of situations that challenge our beliefs, but seeing the real thing had forced me to confront my own passivity, my own tendency to give away power, and had illuminated the path toward self-ownership. It was during these reflective nights that I started to plan. Not revenge, not confrontation, but transformation. I began to map out the life I wanted, the boundaries I needed, and the ways I could cultivate strength and independence. I realized that my story wasn't about the people who had hurt me or the situations I had endured. It was about how I chose to rise above them. I also began to see small signs of regret from those who had underestimated me. Colleagues, acquaintances, even old friends who had assumed I would always be the quiet one, the accommodating one. They noticed the shift, the subtle changes in my confidence and assertiveness, and it unnerved them. I didn't need to gloat or make a scene. The recognition of my strength was quietly intoxicating. It was poetic in its own way, the world adjusting to the person I was becoming, rather than the person I had been forced to be. Through it all, I discovered that empowerment isn't a single dramatic moment. It's a series of small, deliberate choices, saying no when you want to, yes when it matters, walking away from situations that no longer serve you, and embracing discomfort as a teacher rather than a threat. These are the steps that transform a life. By the end of that chapter, I felt lighter, stronger, and more present than I had in years. I wasn't just surviving, I was starting to truly live. And the memory of that morning, when I first saw the real thing, remained with me not as trauma, but as a spark. A reminder that clarity can arrive suddenly, profoundly, and with the power to change everything. By the time the final weeks of that chapter of my life arrived, I had begun to feel an unfamiliar sense of ownership over my own story. It wasn't sudden, and it wasn't dramatic in the way movies make it out to be. There were no fireworks or triumphant proclamations. Instead, it was quiet, steady, and almost imperceptible. The kind of change that seeps into your bones and makes you recognize that you are no longer the same person who once trembled in the shadows of other people's expectations. I remember walking through the same streets, where I had first seen the real thing, the moment that had ignited all of this inside me. This time I noticed the colors, the sounds, the people passing by. The city hadn't changed, but I had, and in that shift, I discovered a new lens through which to view everything. One sharpened by clarity, tempered by heartbreak, and illuminated by the subtle power of lived experience. The confrontations continued, but they no longer held power over me. Friends who had underestimated my boundaries tried subtle manipulations. Colleagues questioned my decisions. Even those I had once held close seemed surprised by my newfound confidence. And yet, I didn't have to raise my voice or demand recognition. My presence, my quiet insistence on being myself, was enough. That was the real proof. I no longer needed permission to exist fully, to claim space, and to live without apology. There were moments of reflection, too. Small regrets for what could have been different. I thought of the years I had spent silencing myself, tolerating minor betrayals that became monumental in their accumulation. But I also saw the value in it. The pain had been a teacher, the heartbreak a guide, and the silent suffering the forge that had made me resilient. I understood now that my growth was built on the foundation of everything I had endured. Without the whispers, the misunderstandings, and the moments of helplessness, I might never have discovered the depth of my own strength. And then, unexpectedly, came the subtle echoes of regret from others. People who had doubted me, overlooked me, or even sought to control me began to realize that the woman they thought they knew had transformed. Not out of spite, not for revenge, but because I had chosen to live with intention and clarity. They noticed, and it unsettled them. That realization was quiet, poetic, and entirely satisfying. It was the universe's way of showing me that empowerment doesn't need to be loud. It simply needs to exist. I also began to experience moments of beauty I had once taken for granted. Mornings when the sunlight poured into my apartment, evenings when the city lights shimmered like distant stars, conversations with friends that left me feeling nourished rather than drained. These simple things became profound because I was finally present, fully alive, and fully myself. I had reclaimed my perspective, my choices, and my life. And through it all, the memory of that first moment, seeing the real thing, remained a guiding force. I realized that life will always present moments that demand awakening. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the subtle injustices. These are not punishments, but invitations to see clearly, to feel deeply, and to rise fully. The real thing had taught me that ignoring reality doesn't protect you. Facing it, processing it, and allowing it to transform you is what truly matters. By the time I reflected on all that had changed, I felt an unexpected peace. I wasn't defined by the pain or the heartbreak anymore. I wasn't bound by the opinions or expectations of others. I had found my voice, my boundaries, and my quiet strength. And in that space, I discovered the most profound lesson of all. Life isn't about avoiding the storms. It's about learning to stand tall in the rain and find clarity amidst the chaos. I smiled to myself as I sat by the window that evening. City lights shimmering like a reflection of everything I had endured and everything I had gained. I understood now that the real thing, the moment of undeniable clarity, had not been an ending. It had been the beginning of a life fully reclaimed, fully embraced, and fully lived. And that knowledge, that quiet triumph of self-discovery, felt like the most beautiful freedom imaginable. I had endured, I had learned, and I had grown, and now, for the first time in years, I could breathe.